Hi everybody and welcome to week 10 of Poppa's Picks, brought to you by FantasyDonks.com, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know to start playing fantasy football. I'm Sean Big Poppa Williams, and like always, I'll be giving you my picks for this week, week 10 of the NFL fantasy football season. This week, DraftKings is offering $1 million contest. They've changed the rules just a little bit. This week, the entry is $40 to play the Millionaire Maker, and the entries are only $72,000. The payout structure is still roughly the same. I'm going to be entering probably just one team throwing a dart at the Millionaire Maker this week. Hopefully you will too. But without further ado, let's get to the Poppa's Picks segment, and we'll start off with quarterbacks as always. The number one quarterback I have for you on the board this week is Aaron Rodgers. He carries with him a $9,400 price tag versus the Bears. This is the highest over-under week of the week at 53, and Rodgers gets the Bears, who might be falling apart. The Bears average giving up over 19.6 points per game to opposing fantasy quarterbacks. And we all know Rodgers has a plethora of weapons to get the ball to and should eviscerate and torture the Bears secondary. The second quarterback I have for you, and I think his price is way better than that of Rodgers, is Ben Roethlisberger. He's $7,500, and he's at the Jets this week. The Jets are the worst team in the NFL against quarterbacks, giving up over 21 points to fantasy quarterbacks per game. Roethlisberger is on fire coming off his last two games, throwing for over 5 touchdown passes in both of those games, and his price doesn't kill you. I like Roethlisberger against the Jets this week. The third quarterback I have for you is Carson Palmer at $7,700 versus the Rams. The Cardinals get another soft matchup this week against the Rams, and the Rams are better against the run than they are against the pass. That means Palmer should have a big day. His targets should also have a nice day as well. The number 4 quarterback I have for you this week is Matty Ice at $6,300 at the Bucks. The Bucks are a bottom 5 defense in the league, giving up almost 300 yards and at least 2 touchdowns per average week. And Matt Ryan should have all of his weapons healthy for a change, which will be nice for him. And I think he can put up good points for you this week, especially at his $6,300 price tag. The number 5 quarterback I have for you, and this is the risk-reward picks. I'm going to do a 2-fer here. And we're going to go first with Mark Sanchez at $5,400 versus the Panthers. The Panthers' defense is bad. The question here and the risk-reward here is, can Sanchez be effective for the Eagles? He was last week. Coming in for an injured Foles, and I think at $5,400, he's well worth a shot to try to roster this week. The second quarterback I have for you in the risk reward is that of Josh McCown at $5,000 versus the Falcons. McCown was just named the starter again this week. He has great wide receivers, and the Falcons secondary is suspect to say the least. The question is will he be able to do anything? Because he didn't do anything earlier in the season. I think for a $5,000 price tag with this juicy of a matchup, it's well worth a dart, especially if you're running multiple teams in tournaments. I would throw a McCown dart. Now that we've wrapped up quarterbacks, let's move right along to running backs. And the number 1 running back I have for you this week is DeMarco Murray at $8,600 at Jacksonville. Murray didn't hit 100 yards for the first time this season last week. He will be back on the train this week. I truly believe that. Look for him to pay off at his price tag against the lowly Jag secondary. They flew to England for this game. Also, we have Romo dealing with back problems, which means they could rely even more on Murray. I like him a lot this week at his $8,600 price tag. The number 2 running back I have for you this week is that of Marshawn Lynch. He is $6,700 this week on DraftKings versus the Giants. Finally, Marshawn got to form last week against the Raiders, and the Giants are another bad run D. I truly believe Marshawn Lynch will eviscerate them. I think that the Seahawks have figured out that their offense has to run through Lynch for it to be effective. The number 3 running back I have for you this week is Ronnie Hillman at $6,100 at the Raiders. News out of Denver is that Monty Ball may be back this week. My honest opinion is, who cares? Hillman has earned the starting job, and the Broncos front office says, and the coaching staff says as much. I think a lot of people in the industry will be laying off of Hillman, seeing how much, worrying that Ball will cut into his carries. I think Ball just cuts into Juwan Thompson's carries, not into Hillman's. I think Hillman's going to have a monster week, and I don't think he'll be highly owned. That's why I'm going to be all over him this week. The number 4 running back is LaShawn McCoy at 5,600 versus the Panthers. Look, I'm convinced he's going to have a breakout game soon, and sooner rather than later. He's really cheap and gets a great matchup with a backup quarterback at the helm. I know right now he's listed as questionable because he's had the flu or something like that. It's just a sick issue. If he's out for any reason, I will update that for you and make the play of Darren Sproles for 4,800. The matchup is too juicy to avoid whichever one of these guys is going to play. I have no problem rostering either one of them. The number 5 running back I have for you this week at the risk reward pick is Bobby Rainey at $4,400 versus the Falcons. Look, this is a risk only because Tampa Bay's run offense is so bad. Normally, any running back versus the Falcons, I would tell you to play in a heartbeat, as the Falcons are the worst team in the NFL against the run. However, the Bucks are near worst in offensive rushing production. So Rainey did have a decent week last week. He does seem to be improving. At $4,400, you can't really go wrong, but especially with this matchup. But I made him the risk-reward play just because the Bucks are that bad offensively. With that said, let's move right along to the wide receivers that I have for you this week. The number 1 wide receiver should surprise no one on my board this week, and that is Antonio Brown at $8,700 at the Jets. The number 1 fantasy wide receiver this year gets the Jets secondary. I think he'll eviscerate that Jets secondary. I think you're going to get rewarded for making a play at him at $8,700. I realize he's expensive, but there's some value quarterbacks and some value running backs this week that you can pair him with and to stud up at wide receiver. The number 2 wide receiver I have for you this week is Jeremy Maclin at $8,300 versus the Panthers. Look, Maclin is on fire and he's healthy, which is great to play in fantasy. He put up great numbers with Sanchez last week, so you shouldn't have to worry about Sanchez starting when you figure him into your equation. He gets another cellar-dwelling secondary in the Panthers. The problem here is whether or not the Eagles will just run them. I haven't seen Chip Kelly ever just run the ball on a team. I think Macklin's going to put up a monster. The number 3 wide receiver I have for you this week is Jordy Nelson. He carries with him a $7,600 price tag versus Chicago. Jordy had 2 down weeks back-to-back. I would look for him to get back to form against a banged-up Chicago defense. Excuse me. I think Jordy Nelson can pay off, especially if you're looking to save money on Antonio Brown. Jordy Nelson's one of the few players that has as high a ceiling as Brown does, and he's $1,100 cheaper. The number 4 wide receiver I have for you this week is Julio Jones at $6,600 and at the Bucks. Julio is healthy and is back. Finally. Off the bye, I expect him to have a really good week. His price is too cheap for what he can do. We've seen 40 burgers out of him in the past. The Bucs secondary is a dumpster fire, to say the least. They are dead last in the NFL defending the pass. I love Julio Jones this week. Also, you can make a Roddy White contrarian play there. No one will fault you. I think he can also have a really good game. The number 5 wide receiver I have for you this week as the risk-reward pick is that of Kelvin Benjamin at $4,200 at the Eagles. Look, I expect Kelvin to bounce back after a couple of down weeks. His price is really nice at $4,200, and he gets the Eagles secondary that, because of the pace of their offense, forces teams to throw all over them. I expect the Panthers to be behind and throwing the ball early and often in this one. Kelvin Benjamin should continue to see around 9 to 15 targets this game and should hopefully haul in at least 6 to 8 of them and put up a real good point line for you this week. With wide receivers wrapped up, let's move right along to the tight end position. The number 1 tight end I have for you this week is Martellus Bennett at $5,600. He's at the Packers this week. Look, the Black Unicorn is back. He's off bye. He has been really the one solid option at tight end this year. performing constantly on a week in and week out. Gronk is on bye this week, and Jimmy Graham and Greg Olsen don't have the best of matchups, and Jimmy Graham's price tag is ridiculous, especially if you're wanting to roster some of those stud wide receivers. I like Martellus Bennett to have a good game against the Packers, as their secondary hasn't really been tested by a beast tight end yet. The number two tight end that I have for you this week is that of Heath Miller at $4,500. He's at the Jets. Heath has had some really nice games recently, and gets the Jets, who are a bottom 3 defense against the tight end. A lot of teams have had their way torching the Jets secondary via the pass from wide receivers and tight ends. I would expect Heath Miller, like I said earlier, Antonio Brown will have a good day, and Roethlisberger will have a good day as well. The number 3 tight end I have for you this week is that of Larry Donnell at $4,400 at the Seahawks. The Seahawks D is bad against the tight end. I mean, they're awful. They're hot garbage. Let me put into perspective how bad this defense is against the tight end. Last week, Michael Rivera, you're probably like, who? Of the Raiders, the tight end, caught 8 balls and 2 touchdowns against the Seahawks D. With the rule changes, this Seahawks defense isn't what it used to be. I would look for Larry Donnell to have a really good game against them. With that said, I would also look for Odell Beckham and Ruben Randle to have nice games as well. Keep them in mind as well on your team. The number 4 tight end I have for you this week is Owen Daniels, and he is only $3,300 versus the Titans. The ODB is back in form. He recovered from a knee injury really fast. Missed only 1 week. Last week he came back. He caught 6 balls for 53 yards. I think that Owen Daniels will put up a monster stat line for you. Kubiak's offense functions through the tight end, and Owen Daniels is always capable of dropping 30-plus points when he gets going. You change that 6 for 53 line, you add 2 touchdowns to that, he's automatically at 25 points. I love Owen Daniels this week in a good matchup against the Titans. The number 5 tight end I have for you in the last Poppa's pick of the week is the risk-reward play of Clay Harbor versus the Cowboys at $3,200. If you were watching Poppa's picks last week, you know if you rostered Clay Harbor that he put up a goose egg and probably cost your team a little bit. However, this matchup is just too juicy to ignore. The Cowboys are 31st in the league against the tight end. The Jags should see this. Well, at least I think they will. They should make him a good play this week. He should be back to his normal ways of catching 6 to 8 balls and putting up a nice yardage total along with that. I think at $3,200, he's well worth the risk this week. And like I said earlier, by cheaping out on the tight end, it allows you to stud up at wide receiver this week for some of those juicy wide receiver matches. I hope you enjoyed Poppa's picks for Week 10 of the NFL football season. Remember, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us either on fantasydonks.com or at Twitter. I'm Big Poppa Debate. That's BIGPOPPADB8, and I'll answer any and all questions you have about fantasy football. I hope you enjoyed Poppa's picks, and hopefully we can all make money this week. Have a good one. Bye.